Top of the morning, and blessings to all of you. Thanks for checking in with us, and thank you for all that you are and all that you offer to our community of faith. A couple of questions that came in on Ask a Priest. And notice it's me who's here, not Father Joe, because these are tough questions, So, number one, how frequently should a person receive the anointing of the sick if the only medical challenge is that they are old? Well, I'm never going to tell anybody that they're old. Are you? Not a really path to walk down. However, once someone is over 75, they're eligible, if you want to use that word, to celebrate the anointing of the sick. And they could celebrate that anointing maybe every 2 to 3 months. It would be a good guideline. Hope that makes sense. It's just an encouraging sacrament of love and of compassion for the individual, especially when we get older. So that would be my advice anyway. Maybe every 2 or 3 months, if that. And if then any changes, any kind of serious illness or medical procedures, then to have that celebrated at that point in time. We good? Number 2, this is interesting. Do you have any suggestions how to handle my teen's resistance to making his or her confirmation? That's a wonderful question, but there's a lot of complications associated with that. Sometimes, as you know, teenagers, when I was a teenager, did I want to follow my mom or dad's direction or their way of life? No. No, I wanted to go out on my own. I wanted to make my own decisions. And most of those decisions were not well informed. Like it wasn't that I studied theology and my relationship to the church and then said, I've done a year or two of study with some well-known people, and I've come to the conclusion that I do not want to be a believer. I've never met anybody who's done that. So, one, it could be personality issues between the youngster and his or her parent. And that's always going to be a collision. And mom and dad and the youngster have to kind of work through that themselves. And there's no question, the best example is an adult's, the way they live their life. And as one beautiful person said, a college student came home and said, Mom and Dad, how do I know that Jesus, his way of life, is the right way? And then she went on to explain, not theologically, but in real life terms, so to speak. She says, well, if you judge someone harshly, how do you feel afterwards? Or if you did not judge them harshly, how do you feel afterwards? You probably feel differently. And that's an example of kind of following the way of the Lord. Or if you forgive someone, how do you feel afterwards, as opposed to holding on to a grudge? Oh, okay. Geez, yeah, that makes a little more sense in the effect that it has on the individual. The other is, among others, is to read a text or a book, speak to your priest or the faith formation director and ask them for a little text that you and the child could read together and then discuss and debate, if you want to use that word. That way you have a common text. And one of the beautiful ones is, just the New Testament, some of the beautiful passages. This is my commandment, love one another as I have loved you. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean to you as an adult? What does it mean to your son or daughter? And then listening to each other, taking some beautiful passages like the Sermon on the Mount from Matthew chapter 5 and up to, I think, chapter 8. And just saying, well, what do you think about that? Does that make sense? What effect is that going to have in my life by being a caring and compassionate and loving person? Is that going to make me more fulfilled as an individual, or by being selfish and arrogant and uninterested in the problems of other people? Is that going to bring joy to my life? And that's what Jesus really wants to do, isn't it? Is to bring joy into each of our lives, the fullness of joy that anyone who loves us as much as God does wants for us, as any parent wants the fullness of joy and life for their son or daughter. So I hope that's helpful. Now I think we have a surprise question coming at me. Here it is. Number 3. What were your parents' reaction when you told them you want to become a priest? They said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. I thought for sure you were going to Walpole prison." That was their reaction. Of course, you have to understand, my parents, my father had 2 uncles and a sister who were priests, and his sister, Mary Louise, was a nun. And she died in 1918 in ministry in the flu epidemic. And then my father has 5 nephews who are priests. So the idea of someone becoming a priest was not something foreign or uncomfortable, but something that my parents had a great deal of respect for and appreciation. My 2 uncles served in Mississippi. My uncle Peter, who I'm named after, was Mississippi, and then he was in the Second World War for 5 years. He was a chaplain over in Europe with the 69th Regiment out of Mississippi, not out of New York. So the idea of priesthood was not something unfamiliar or uncomfortable for my parents to consider. It was something that they rejoiced in, actually. And that was the other pressure on me, because I knew it was making them so happy that I was in the seminary. And I said, well, am I doing this to make them happy, or is this really something God is calling me to experience? So I had to work that through in the seminary, which I did. And I said, yeah, I think the Lord wants me, for me, to be a priest, and not just to make my mom and dad happy. And I think they are happy. I hope they are anyway. Hey, blessings, God love, and thanks for sharing your time and presence with us. Have a great day.